Well, hey there, sugar. I'm Darlene Jenkins. I'm 82 years old, born and raised right here in Goodowell, Texas. I got 3 grown kids, 2 ex-husbands, and 1 neighbor who still owes me a lawnmower he borrowed in 1989. And no, Earl, I ain't forgotten. You know, when I turned 60, I figured life was mostly behind me. My knees popped every time I stood up, my back talked more than my mouth, and I had a front porch that squeaked louder than my ex's pickup truck. But then one day, sitting right there on that porch with my dog asleep at my feet and my 3rd slice of pecan pie in hand, I thought, Darlene, you either gonna die rockin' in that chair or you're gonna do something fun before the good Lord calls you home. So I did what any sensible Southern woman would do. I tied my apron, cranked up the oven, and started baking pies like the rent depended on it. Which, funny enough, it kinda did. I didn't have no fancy plan. No business degree. Didn't even know what the heck SEO was, still don't. But I had butter, sass, and a lot of opinions. And somehow, sugar, I ended up with a real business. A good one. One that paid for a lake house, sent my grandbabies to college, and got me a little bit famous. The church ladies still talk about it like it was a scandal. So grab yourself a glass of sweet tea, get comfy, and let me tell you how a woman with nothing but pies and a dream stumbled face first into success, like steppin' on a rake in flip-flops. Let's get started. It started with a scarf. And an insult. The good kind. Well, hey there, sugar. Let me tell you something that might just surprise you. I never planned to start a business. At 60, I figured my work was done. I'd raised 3 kids, survived 2 husbands, barely, and outlived 1 cranky neighbor who still owed me a lawnmower. I wasn't dreaming of offices or spreadsheets. I just wanted my porch swing, my sweet tea, and a good ball of yarn. Knittin' was my piece. Been doing it since I was a little girl sittin' by my Mima, who used to knit by candlelight and curse in German when she dropped a stitch. So anyway, picture this. It's late November, chilly as all get out, and our church is having its annual holiday bazaar. You know the kind: casseroles, crochet angels, and that one lady who always tries to sell handmade soap that smells like regret. I brought a basket of my scarves. Nothing fancy, just soft yarn, bright colors, little tassels at the end. I'd knitted them while watching movies in my Tarrant at the plot holes. Didn't think much of it. I figured maybe I'd sell 1 or 2, give the rest away to the church coat drive. Well, honey, they sold like hot cakes at a Baptist potluck. By 10:30, I had a line. Folks were trying 'em on like it was Macy's at Christmas. One gentleman, bless his heart, held up a lavender one and said, "Ma'am, this is softer than anything my wife's ever made, but please don't tell her I said that." I laughed so hard I dropped my punch cup. By noon, I was sold out. My grandson Tucker, he's 23, thinks he knows everything and might actually be right, helped me pack up my empty basket. On the way to the car, he looked at me and said, "Granny, you know you could sell these online, right?" I told him, "Baby, I don't even know how to forward an email. The internet gives me hives." But Tucker, bless that child, said he'd do it all for me. He pulled out his phone right there in the church parking lot, still holding a pumpkin muffin, and said, "We're making you an Etsy store. Right now." I said, "What's an Etsy?" He grinned and said, "Where hipsters go to spend their money." I figured, what the heck? I ain't got nothing to lose but yarn and dignity, and I already lost that last one years ago at a family wedding when I danced to Beyoncé with a pulled hamstring. So he set me up a shop. I let him name it. He said, "Let's call it Darlene's Cozy Coils." Said it sounded boutique-y. I said it sounded like a hair salon, but what do I know? He took some pictures of my scarves on our old rocking chair, edited them with one of those filter things that make everything look nostalgic, and bam, I had myself a store. I didn't expect a thing. Maybe 1 order from my cousin Patty in Florida if she could figure out how to use her credit card. But wouldn't you know it, 3 days later, a stranger from Oregon bought 2 scarves. 2. I didn't even know people in Oregon got cold. I knitted like a woman possessed that night, sent them off in a shoebox with a thank you note written in my best cursive. And I tell you, when I got that little notification that said, "You've made a sale," I nearly screamed. I made Tucker print it out. I stuck it on the fridge next to my grandbaby's macaroni drawing and a coupon for cat litter. That was the moment. The click. The shift. Something changed. I wasn't just Darlene from Texas who knits to keep her hands warm. I was Darlene Jenkins, online businesswoman. Now I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a strategy. What I had was a plastic bin full of yarn, a good pair of hands, and 1 sassy grandson with Wi-Fi. That was it. No one tells you that a business can sneak up on you. Mine sure did. Like a raccoon in the kitchen, 1 minute everything's quiet, The next you're knee-deep in orders and someone's crying. It started with a scarf. And an insult. The good kind. And let me tell you, sugar, that little spark? That nudge? That whisper from the universe, or your grandbaby. Sometimes that's all you need. You don't have to know the whole path. You just gotta take the first stitch. 10 sales might not sound like much, but for me, it was like hitting the jackpot with a crochet hook. Now sugar, once that first scarf went out the door, I got a little, what's the word Tucker used? Addicted. That's right. Etsy became my new bingo night. I'd wake up every morning, make my coffee, 3 sugars, no judgment, and check my little Etsy dashboard like it was the stock market. Every time that tiny cha-ching sound played on my phone, I nearly spilled my coffee. Felt like angels were singing just for me. My second sale came from someone named Moonchild77. I wasn't sure if that was a real person or a cult, but they bought a forest green scarf and left a 5-star review that said, "So soft I want to marry it." Honey, I framed that review. It's hanging in my kitchen right next to my recipe for pecan pie and my grandson's kindergarten turkey made from his handprint. Now let me be real with you, those first 10 sales? They were chaos. Sweet, beautiful, yarn-covered chaos. I was still using shoe boxes to ship orders. I'd stuff a scarf in, write a note with a Sharpie on the back of an old grocery list, tape it shut with packing tape I got from the Dollar General, and pray it got there in one piece. Tucker said I needed branding. I thought that meant cattle. Turns out, it's about making things look pretty and matchy-matchy. So he made me little tags with my name on M, handmade by Darlene Jenkins, and I tied M with twine like I was Martha freakin' Stewart. I started organizing my yarn by color. Had skeins of buttercream, cranberry, sage, and something called Midnight Denim, which I swear is just navy blue but fancier. My guest bedroom became the yarn room. No more guests unless you count that one possum that got in through the window screen. He didn't buy anything, by the way. Just knocked over a basket. And every scarf had a name. I wasn't just selling scarves, baby, I was selling stories. There was the Sunday porch swing, a soft pink one with little lace trim. Then there was the November chill, charcoal gray with thick ridges, perfect for gloomy mornings with coffee and gossip. And the Texas Christmas, red, white, and sparkly gold, bless her heart, she sold out in 2 days flat. By sale number 6, I ran out of thank you cards. So I cut up some old church bulletins and wrote on the blank sides. One lady wrote back and asked if I was inviting her to a potluck. I told her, only if she brings deviled eggs. But sugar, let me tell you, those 10 little sales? They lit something in me I didn't even know was there. I wasn't just passing the time anymore. I had purpose. I had customers, real people out there wearing my scarves, staying warm because of something I made with my own 2 hands and a lot of strong language when the yarn tangled. And honey, when I got my first repeat customer, oh Lord, I nearly wept. She said her friend stole her scarf at brunch and begged her to get another. That's when I knew, maybe I had something here. Maybe I wasn't just knitting for fun anymore. I remember sitting on the porch that night with Tucker, sipping sweet tea under the fairy lights we strung up last summer. I looked at him and said, "You really think I can keep this going?" And he said, "Granny, you're not just selling scarves. You're selling comfort. You're selling Texas in a box." Now I don't know if that boy was but airing me up for gas money, but I took it to heart. 10 sales turned into 20. 20 turned into a whole new chapter of my life. I thought ROI was a wrestling move. Turns out it's about money. Who knew? Well, sugar, if I ever write a book about starting a business at 60, I'm calling it Mistakes and Macrame. 'Cause let me tell you, I didn't start smart. I started stubborn. So after opening my little Etsy shop, not your granny scarves, I sat down at the kitchen table with a pen, a notepad, and a peach soda. I was gonna make myself a business plan, but got distracted making banana pudding instead. Anyway, first week I get 5 orders. I'm thrilled. I yelled to the dog, Baxter. We're in business. He didn't care. But I started knitting like my retirement depended on it, which turns out it kinda did. Then came the first disaster. I shipped a scarf in a cereal box. Don't judge me, it was sturdy and I had a whole stack of Honey Nut Cheerios just sitting there. I even poked little air holes so the yarn wouldn't get claustrophobic. Apparently that's not a thing. The customer messages me. "Ma'am, this is lovely, but did you send it in a box with a raccoon-sized hole?" I said, "It's called ventilation. It's luxury." Next, my Etsy shop blew up and not in a good way. My niece had posted a picture of me knitting with curlers in my hair and captioned it, CEO Energy. Y'all, I had 42 orders in a weekend. I cried into my yarn bowl. The site was glitchin', PayPal locked me out, and I thought skew was something you caught from undercooked chicken. Meanwhile, my grandson Wyatt was sittin' there Logan like it was the funniest episode of The Golden Girls. He says, "Granny, you need a system." I told him, "I got a system, baby. It's called panic and duct tape." So I start learnin'. I watched YouTube tutorials by women with perfect nails and ring lights explainin' how to build your brand. I had to pause every 10 seconds just to look up what words meant. What in the world is a conversion funnel? I thought it was for baking. And then came the great sticker meltdown. Apparently, you're supposed to include cute branded thank you notes and stickers with your packaging. So I ordered 200 stickers that said, "Handmade with love by Darlene." Only they arrived saying, "Handmade with love by Darlene." And baby, that is a whole different vibe. Still, I stuck every last one of those stickers on. People probably thought they were getting scarves blessed by some Texas nun. As for logistics, one time I mailed 2 scarves to the same woman in different states. Don't ask. I was sleep-deprived, covered in glitter ribbon, and talking to my cat like she was head of shipping. But here's the thing, sugar, I didn't quit. I cussed a lot. I cried a little. I broke a printer and maybe a plastic fork. But every mistake taught me something, like don't use glitter tape unless you want your entire house to sparkle like a disco saloon. One TikTok video. A whole lot of trouble. Now listen, sugar. You ever have one of them days where you think the good Lord's just playing a little prank on you? Well, mine started with spilled flour, a knot in my yarn the size of a possum, and me dropping an entire cup of sweet tea down my shirt. I was already hollerin' by 9 a.m. and I hadn't even put on my bra yet. So I'm in the kitchen trying to whip up some homemade beeswax lip balm to include in scarf orders because I read somewhere that added value was a thing when the lid pops off the flour canister and boom. White cloud. Everywhere. I looked like a snowman that had been hit by a freight train. Now my granddaughter, little Miss Social Media Genius, she's sittin' on the counter watchin' me melt down like a stick of butter on a hot skillet. She pulls out her phone and says, "Granny, this is comedy gold." I'm recording. I said, "Girl, don't you dare put me on that TikTok." She goes, "It's called TikTok." And I go, "I don't care if it's called chicken lickin', you better not." Too late. She posted the whole thing. Me slippin' on yarn, yellin' at the flour, and shoutin' something like, "If Martha Stewart ran a prison bakery, this is what it'd look like." I didn't think much of it. I went back to wrangling ribbon and reprinting lost shipping labels. But honey, the internet had other plans. By that evening, I had 11,000 views. By morning, 500,000. I thought my phone was broken, it just kept dingin', like a slot machine in Vegas. Orders were pouring in faster than I could say backordered. I called Wyatt, my grandson, and I said, "Baby, I think I went viral." He said, "You're trending, Granny." And I said, "Is that good or do I need ointment?" The video's comments were full of folks saying things like, "I'd buy a scarf from this lady in a heartbeat. She's the grandma I never had. Someone get her a reality show." So now I had 300 orders and not a single system in place. My living room looked like Hobby Lobby threw up in it. I hired my best friend from church, Mavis, who, bless her heart, can knit faster than a jackrabbit on espresso. Then I pulled in my neighbor Doris, mostly because she owed me money and I figured free labor was a nice repayment plan. Even got my granddaughter involved. She started hand-drawing tags with little cartoon versions of me saying things like, "Made with sass in Southern charm," and "Wrapped in warmth. Approved by Jesus." I turned my garage into a full-blown scarf factory. I'm talking folding tables, bins of yarn, labeled hooks, order boards, even a whiteboard that said, "Darlene's Empire, Day 42, still standing." We worked day and night. I'd knit until my fingers swelled up like breakfast sausages. Mavis would sit there humming gospel music while speed stitching. Doris brought her poodle, who was absolutely no help but boosted morale. We laughed. We cried. We once glued a thank you card to a box with maple syrup by accident. Don't ask. And baby, it kept growing. TikTok folks kept coming back. Every time I ranted about glitter or dropped a box on my foot, my granddaughter posted it. Turns out people love watching old ladies cuss at UPS labels. Who knew? It got to the point where someone from Good Morning America emailed me a skin for an interview. I thought it was spam and told them to go kick rocks. Thank goodness Wyatt intercepted that before I blocked M. Suddenly, Not Your Granny scarves wasn't just a joke on a tag, it was a real business. People were emailing me from Canada, England, even Japan. One woman asked if I could knit her a matching set for her cat. I said sure, but the cat better not be allergic to sass. They said act like a CEO, so I bought a label maker and stopped apologizing for talking up space. Now sugar, let me tell you something nobody warns you about when your hobby becomes a business. At some point, you gotta start acting like you mean it. I was sitting at my dining table covered in yarn, receipts, and what I thought was a cookie but turned out to be a cat toy when I realized. Darlene, honey, you ain't running a little Etsy shop anymore. You're running a dang operation. We were up to 60 orders a day. That's 60 scarves, 60 bags, 60 tags, and 60 little notes signed. Love, Darlene, stitched with sass. Mavis was talking customer service calls on my landline. Doris was printing shipping labels with her bifocals halfway down her nose. My garage looked like Amazon and Joanne Fabrics had a baby. And me? I was still answering emails like, "Hi, sweet pea. Sorry for the delay. I'm just one old lady and my printer's possessed." I had to make a choice, stay overwhelmed or step the heck up. So I did the scariest thing I'd done in 20 years. I walked into Office Depot and bought myself a label printer and a whole stack of spreadsheets. I also bought trail mix and a pink stapler, but that's beside the point. I sat down and told the team, that's what I called Mavis, Doris, and my granddaughter now, the team. Felt official. I said, y'all, we're not playing anymore. We got a brand. We got demand. And we got arthritis. But we also got heart. So buckle up. First thing I did? Made a real business budget. Had to Google what net margin meant, thought it had something to do with fishing. Then I hired Wyatt, my tech-savvy grandson, to make us a real website. I said I wanted it to look like Magnolia but with glitter and grits. He delivered. We got a Shopify store. We automated our labels. We put up a no yarn in the coffee sign. I even recorded a voicemail that said, "Thank you for Callan, not your granny scarves we're knit in and can't come to the phone." And y'all. I stopped apologizing for talking myself seriously. Because here's what no one tells you. When you grow up in the South, especially as a woman, folks train you to be nice before you're bold. But at 60, with a hot glue gun in one hand and QuickBooks in the other, I decided I didn't need to be nice. I needed to be in charge. I registered the business name, got a P.O. box, printed business cards with my face on them. I told the designer, make me look like I bake cookies and run an empire. And you know what? Folks started treating me different. Not just customers, me. I started feeling different. More powerful. More confident. Less sweet old lady, more CEO in pearls and orthopedic shoes. Now don't get me wrong, I still burn cookies and forget passwords. But I also negotiate supplier deals, answer interviews, and manage payroll while wearing my bless this mess apron. And baby, I never imagined I'd be the boss. But I also never imagined I'd be on the front page of Southern Living holding a scarf and a pie. Life's full of surprises. Bought me a little house by the lake. With a porch swing and enough room for peace. Now sugar, let me tell you. I never started this thing to get rich. Truth be told, when I opened my Etsy shop, I was just trying to keep my hands busy and my heart from getting too quiet. Didn't have a 5-year plan. Heck, I didn't even have a 5-day one. Just yarn, a pair of reading glasses, and a whole lot of sass. But fast forward a couple years. And wouldn't you know, my handmade scarf business had turned into a full-blown brand. We weren't just packing orders in the garage anymore. We had a wait list, a wholesale inquiry from Nordstrom, I nearly passed out, and more zeros in my bank account than I'd ever seen outside of a bingo jackpot. So what did I do? Well, first, I cried a little. Then I bought myself something real nice. A lake house. That's right. Darlene Jenkins, age 68, small-town widow, proud knitter of wonky scarves. Became a woman with a waterfront view and a key to a screened-in porch. Now don't you go imagining some cold, modern glass box. No ma'am. My lake house has floral curtains, a swing-in bench out front, and a wind chime that sounds like Dolly Parton whispering good advice. There's a garden out back. A rocking chair inside. And sitting real pretty in the field nearby, my rescue horse Carolina. She's moody, has opinions, and only lets me brush her when I sing to her. In other words, she fits in just fine. You know what's funny? The minute I moved in, folks started treating me like a success story. And sure, I suppose I am, but I didn't feel all that different. I still make my tea too sweet. Still forget where I set my phone. Still talk to my plants and call customer service with a voice that says I ain't here to play. But now, I wake up with the sun spilling across the lake. I knit in peace. I host the grandkids. I breathe a little deeper. And one day this big fancy company reached out, wanted to buy my business. Offered me a whole pile of money. Said they'd take over the brand, the name, the look, and my scarf patterns. And I told them, "Sweetheart, you can take my minivan before you take my patterns. Those stitches are mine. Over my butter body. Because this business? It ain't just yarn and profit margins. It's memories. It's the way Mavis hums while she wraps packages. It's how my granddaughter beams when she tells people her granny's a CEO. It's freedom, bought stitch by stitch, mistake by mistake. So no, I didn't sell. Instead, I poured myself a glass of sweet tea, sat on that porch swing, and smiled like a woman who bet on herself and won. Starting late don't mean you're behind. It means you skip the dumb years. You know, sugar, folks always ask me, "Darlene, what's the biggest thing you learned startin' a business at 60? And my first answer is always, that PayPal ain't a paper check and hashtags aren't just pound signs. But truth is, I've learned a hell of a lot more than how to use a label printer. Because when you start something that late in life, you ain't just learning the business stuff. You're relearning yourself. See, in your 20s, you start things with energy. In your 30s, with ambition. But at 60, honey, you start with intention. You don't care about impressing people. You don't care if you look foolish. You care if it feeds your soul, lets you sleep at night, and makes you smile while folding scarves at 2 a.m. with a rerun of Murder, She Wrote playing in the background. And here's the honest-to-God truth. You don't need youth. You don't need money. And you sure as biscuits don't need a business degree. What you do need is this. Thread grit. The kind that shows up when the printer jams, the yarn supplier ghosts you, and you've got 92 orders in only 87 boxes. Cupcake grace. For yourself. For the days you mess it all up. For the moments you doubt your worth because you made your logo in Microsoft Paint and it looks like a baked potato in a scarf. And you need a little fire in your belly. Not the kind that burns bridges. But the kind that says, I may be late to the party, but I brought pie and I'm staying a while. Here's another thing I learned. If your idea fits on a napkin, you're halfway there. My business plan? It was written on the back of a church bulletin with a glitter pen. Said, make scarves. Sell scarves. Don't cry. That's it. Didn't need an MBA to know what mattered. And yes, you'll make mistakes. I once shipped 50 scarves with the wrong labels and called every customer personally. Told M I was just testing how nice they were. Most of them laughed. One sent cookies. Another became a repeat customer. Turns out people don't need perfect. They need real. And finally, if there's one gospel truth I want to tattoo on every forehead under the Mason-Dixon line, it's this. It is never ever ever too late to start. Don't you dare listen to anyone who says otherwise. If you're breathing, you're building. If you're dreaming, you're not done. And if you're sitting there thinking, but I'm too old, then honey, take a page from my book and write your own dang chapter. Because you know what business at 60 taught me? That I ain't too old, I'm just seasoned. Like a cast iron skillet. Like good chili. Like life itself. And my advice to you. Well, sugar, if there's one thing I want you to take away from all this pie bikini, neighbor fightin', business startin', mess I've told you, it's this. Start messy, keep going. Don't wait for permission. That's right. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need a perfect plan or fancy degree. You just need grit, sugar, and a good pie crust. I mean, look at me. At 60, I was still trying to figure out how to make a website not look like it was put together by a 4-year-old. I had no business background, no investors knocking on my door, and sure as heck no tech skills. But what I did have was determination, a stubborn streak the size of Texas, and a whole lot of love for pie. And baby, that's enough. Don't wait around for the world to tell you you're ready. If I waited for permission, I'd still be sittin' on my porch sippin' sweet tea, lettin' life pass me by. You make your own permission. You don't need youth, money, or fancy degree. No, sir. You just need that fire in your belly, the grit to push through, and a willingness to look a little silly now and then. That's the secret, sugar. You think there's some magic formula? Well, maybe it's a mix of sweet tea and stubbornness. I dunno, but it works. If I can do it at 60, you can do it now. No excuses. And I'm gonna tell you right now, age is just a number. That's a lie they tell you when you're young, so you don't realize that you're never too old to start something big. You've got years of wisdom. You've got a lifetime of stories and experience. And you've got a whole bunch of heart. Now go out and use it. Here's to the late bloomers. The ones who didn't start out perfect but did it anyway. The ones who got knocked down but got back up with a little more grit and a lot more heart. Here's to us, sugar. We're the ones making things happen when they said we were too old. May our ovens stay hot. And our bank accounts stay even hotter. Cheers, darling. Here's to never giving up. To always starting no matter how late. And to always believing that the best part of the journey is still ahead. Dear, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. There are many more interesting stories ahead.